identified 8 factors that we think you ought to consider when you're trying to put together your ideal information management strategy. And remember, we said this morning, the strategy is harder to come by because of these converging forces now. We have more and more information. It is in more and more different forms. It's on mobile devices. We've got a different mentality when it comes to our users now. They're not just document and records management specialists. We've got younger people coming in that are expecting to use the same networking tools that they use in their professional life as they do in their personal life. So that's creating a lot of complexity. And we're still trying to maintain some control while we're empowering our knowledge workers to truly leverage these tools for great things that can be achieved. Some creativity and collaboration to solve some problems. So in doing that, I mentioned that we broke those 8 down and we gave you 8 checklists for each one. So 8 items on a checklist for each one. So this is your 64 item checklist. Some of the things you're going to hear and see are repeated because they're very important. Things like planning, things like change management, things like training. We've talked about how important training is, so bear with us here. And I should say that this is a pretty quick run through, but hopefully it will give you a sense of, have we thought of all of these things? The 8 Factors eBook that we're going to send to you in about a week's time is going to fill in a lot of the blanks and fill in a lot of the detail and give you some more instructional guidance, because I think it's it's very easy for us to make the business case and you kind of go, yeah, I get it, I know, we've got a problem, we've got vulnerabilities, but how? How do we start? You know, we talked about the fact that this is a pretty mature industry. We've got mature technologies that have been around for a long time. And when all of us look and we see, oh my gosh, there is an explosion of information. We've got information that could be sensitive, it can be contractual in nature. That is ECM. But ECM is a combination of things. Somebody doesn't just wake up in the morning and say, you know, I think I need ECM. Or I'm going to go buy me an ECM. It doesn't really happen that way. This is a German metaphorical term, and I am not a German speaker, but it's something like Erlegende Wollmilchsau. And it means something that is highly versatile, performs a whole different function. So here you've got a milk producer, wool producer, pig meat producer, and then an egg layer. And even at AIIM, we think that maybe ECM feels like that sometime. And when you look at the total IT market throughout the world, ECM is still a pretty small percentage of that. Why is that? Everybody needs this stuff. We're all in information, documents, and records management, whether we know it or like it or not. I think it's because of this complexity and the fact that ECM is sort of a sum of a variety of parts and components. And we've always defined it at AIIM as the tools and technologies used to capture, manage, store, preserve, and deliver. And as we said, and our open text friends reminded us, it's not just unstructured information anymore. There's a real blurring between structured and unstructured here. If you don't like these terms, let's talk about what it is that you do. What are the things that you can accomplish? Well, certainly managing your documents. Certainly document imaging. We talked about that. How do you fully extract the information that's on paper and use it not just to make an archive, but to drive an important business process? And we'll talk more about processes in just a minute. Obviously, records management, workflow. How does that same content flow throughout your enterprise and drive a lot of different functionality and a lot of different processes? I always like to give an analogy of the human body and the blood in the human body. And people go, oh, that is just so gross. But when you think about it, the blood is running through your body, it comes to your lungs, it's performing a particular function. It performs a different function in your brain. It's still the same blood, or still the same content. And that's sort of the ideal that we want to think about, these information assets, this information content flowing throughout our organizations to drive a variety of things that we're trying to do. And when we talk about processes and productivity, we hope that those things are seamless, right? So here are 8 factors. We're going to talk about platform. Platform is getting more complex. Why? Well, the great news is that we've got tons of choices out there in technology. The bad news is that we've got tons of choices in technology. What we think is probably going to happen is, as the consolidations continue, yes, whichever leader, whichever choice you make is very important, and it does have a long tail, because ripping out and starting all over again is not a good idea, and it's not very popular in these economic times, right? But what we hope is that we're getting to a point where those core processes, those niche applications that you're trying to do that are unique to your business, unique to your industry, will actually be platform agnostic. So the platform is hugely important, but we hope that through some of the initiatives around open source and around CMIS. I don't know if you all know what that is. It's Content Management Interoperability Standard, where regardless of where your content resides, regardless of what repositories, applications talk to each other. So, platform, very, very important. A good starting point, we talked about that this morning, is to focus on paper, because so many of our processes are document and content centric, and so much of what we do is still in paper. It is a hybrid world in the collaboration without structure is a waste of time. Now, structure, that's different than just control, right? We said it's not a case of IT saying you can't use Facebook, or you can't use Twitter, you can't use Wikipedia. It's about giving people a reason for wanting to use it and some control in a governance perspective. And if you want to truly leverage these new social networking tools, you need to think about them in terms of processes. Because remember what we said, those younger workers expect to use the same tools in their personal life as they do in their business life. And maybe another way of looking at it is sort of that content continuum. Remember, we put the chart up about control, and certainly those of us who've been brought up in the records and document world, the more sort of structured things, we've got control. But the more casual, the more exotic, there isn't. So think about a content continuum, and what are the tools that you need to manage that content along the continuum. The need for control is certainly not going away. We talked about the variety of risks. There's identity risks. There's e-discovery risks. In a tight economy, nothing really gets approved unless it can show cost savings and process improvement. How do you realize new efficiencies to compete and to conserve your more limited resources? In making choice, knowledge workers, not just document specialists. As we said, one of the most interesting phenomena about these new collaboration tools is that suddenly it's not just the document and records management specialists that are creating this content, that are sharing this content, that are pushing it through the enterprise. So today's knowledge workers are much more prolific, thank you. And they are more demanding. Again, they're demanding in the tools. And what we've seen is that the consumer IT influences are really coming in and leading the way in our business. And business is kind of lagging behind there. You need a plan, just like anything. That's not unique to ECM. That's any kind of a strategy. You need a plan. And failure to address those soft, remember those soft issues like change management and training can really make everything else moot. The technology may not be at fault at all.